beggar girl finds lost documents of a millionaire, but what she asked in exchange. The autumn wind whispered through the Morgan estate as Arturo, a 68-year-old former hospital CEO, collapsed among his beloved roses. His weathered hands clutched his chest, vision blurring as memories of Elizabeth, his late wife, flashed before his eyes. In that critical moment, a young homeless nurse named Daniela rushed to his aid, her skilled hands performing CPR with desperate determination. As she fought to save him, a silver locket with a crescent moon symbol slipped from her neck, catching Arturo's fading gaze. Through the haze of pain, he recognized it identical to the one he'd given his wife 30 years ago. The next words she spoke would shatter his world forever. "I don't want money. Let me be your daughter for 1 week." Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. Arturo Morgan stood at his study window, watching autumn leaves dance across the immaculately maintained garden that stretched behind his Boston mansion. At 68, his tall frame remained imposing, though slightly stooped with age and grief. His silver hair and well-tailored suits couldn't mask the profound loneliness in his steel blue eyes. 10 years had passed since the accident that took his only son, Michael. The memory still haunted him: a rainy night, a drunk driver, and a phone call that shattered his world. Michael's death drove a wedge between Arturo and his daughter-in-law, Sarah, who eventually moved to California with his granddaughter, Amy, unable to bear the weight of shared grief. The garden became his sanctuary, a living memorial to Elizabeth, his beloved wife who succumbed to cancer 3 years before Michael's death. Every morning he meticulously tended the roses she'd planted, trimmed the hedges they'd shaped together, and maintained the stone pathways they'd walked countless times. The garden was his last connection to happiness, though lately even this refuge brought more pain than peace. Few knew of the depression that consumed him behind closed doors. The successful businessman who built Boston's largest private hospital network now spent sleepless nights in his vast, empty home. His wealth, once a source of pride, felt meaningless without family to share it. The medications for his heart condition piled up in his cabinet, often neglected as he questioned whether fighting to live alone was worth the effort. Across town, in a run-down apartment complex, 23-year-old Daniela Thomas prepared for another exhausting day. Her small studio apartment barely fit 2 beds, one for her, another for her mother fighting stage 4 breast cancer. Despite their circumstances, the space was immaculate, filled with makeshift medical supplies and the gentle scent of lavender her mother loved. Daniela's days began before dawn, administering her mother's medications before rushing to her volunteer shift at the Sunset Grove Elderly Care Center. Her nursing degree remained unfinished, abandoned when her mother's illness demanded full-time care, but her natural gift for healing never dimmed. The elderly residents at Sunset Grove adored her. Something in her gentle touch and patient smile brought comfort to even the most difficult patients. She could calm agitated dementia patients with soft songs, coax resistant residents to take their medications, and bring light to the loneliest eyes. "You have healing hands," her mother often said, watching Daniela organize their meager medications with professional precision. But behind Daniela's compassionate smile lay a mystery even she couldn't fully grasp. Her earliest memories were fragmented: a woman's soft voice singing lullabies, the scent of roses, and a silver locket she wore always but couldn't remember receiving. The other nurses whispered about her background, wondering how someone who lived in the city's poorest district could carry herself with such natural grace. Her knowledge of classical music, literature, and proper etiquette seemed at odds with her circumstances. Even her accent occasionally slipped, revealing hints of a more privileged upbringing than her current situation suggested. "Your mother must have been someone special," her colleagues would say, watching her interact with wealthy patients with natural ease. But Maria, the woman Daniela called mother, was a former hotel housekeeper who'd raised her alone in poverty. The contradiction nagged at Daniela's consciousness, though loyalty and love prevented her from questioning too deeply. Throughout the years, Daniela had fought to maintain her dignity despite their poverty. She'd learned to survive on the streets when they couldn't make rent, yet never lost her compassion. Even now, she shared their meager food with elderly neighbors and offered free care to those who couldn't afford medical help. Each night, after her mother fell asleep, Daniela would sit by their tiny window, fingering the silver locket she never removed. Inside was a faded photograph of a rose garden she didn't recognize, yet it filled her with inexplicable longing. Sometimes in her dreams she walked those gardens with a tall, elegant woman whose face she could never quite see. Back at the Morgan estate, Lorena Brooks moved efficiently through her morning routine, her 60 years wearing lightly on her stern features. For 3 decades, she'd managed the household with iron efficiency, earning Arturo's complete trust. Every surface gleamed, every meal appeared perfectly timed, and every detail of the household ran with clockwork precision. But beneath her efficient exterior, Lorena carried dark secrets. Her immaculate records concealed years of careful financial manipulation. Small sums diverted, accounts carefully adjusted, all hidden beneath the mountain of paperwork that Arturo had long since entrusted to her care. The trust fund Elizabeth had established before her death, the one meant for the daughter she'd been forced to give up, had slowly been drained away under Lorena's careful management. Each morning, as she arranged fresh flowers in Elizabeth's favorite vases, Lorena fought down the guilt of her betrayal. She'd been more than a housekeeper to Elizabeth, she'd been a confidante, the only one who knew about the baby born in secret, the child given up to protect the family's reputation. Elizabeth had trusted her to watch over the child from afar, to ensure her safety and comfort. Instead, Lorena had constructed an elaborate web of lies, embezzling the money meant for the girl's care while feeding Elizabeth false information about her daughter's supposed life with a wealthy family. The weight of these deceptions had grown heavier since Elizabeth's death. Watching Arturo's decline, seeing him withdraw further into grief and loneliness, tested her resolve. Yet the fear of discovery, of losing everything she'd built, drove her to maintain the facade. For her position in the household, her financial security, her very freedom all depended on keeping the past buried. As another autumn morning dawned over Boston, these 3 souls moved through their separate lives, unaware of how fate was about to intertwine their destinies. In his garden, Arturo dead-headed roses with trembling hands, fighting another wave of dizziness. In her tiny apartment, Daniela prepared for another day of service, the mysterious locket cool against her skin. And in the mansion's kitchen, Lorena began her daily routine, unaware that her carefully constructed world was about to shatter. The stage was set for a story of lost identity, buried truths, and the redemptive power of love, a tale that would challenge the boundaries of family and force each character to confront the consequences of choices made long ago. Lorena Brooks moved through the Morgan mansion like a shadow, her footsteps silent despite the gleaming hardwood floors. At 60, her steel-grey hair pulled into a severe bun, she embodied the perfect image of a long-serving housekeeper to Boston's elite. But beneath that polished exterior lay a web of secrets that had entangled 3 generations of the Morgan family. 30 years ago, she'd arrived at the mansion's door with impeccable references all forged. Her real history, buried under layers of careful fabrication, included a string of thefts from wealthy employers across Europe. But Elizabeth Morgan, young and naive in her newfound wealth, had seen only Lorena's efficiency and apparent devotion. That first year had cemented Lorena's position as she became Elizabeth's closest confidante. When Elizabeth discovered her pregnancy, a child conceived before her marriage to Arturo, it was Lorena who orchestrated the cover-up. She arranged the private birth, selected the adoption agency, and managed the secret trust fund Elizabeth established for her daughter's future. "Promise me you'll watch over her," Elizabeth had pleaded, tears streaming down her face as she signed the adoption papers. "Make sure she's safe, loved, well cared for," Lorena had promised, even as she began siphoning money from the trust into offshore accounts. Over the years, Lorena masterfully played both sides. To Elizabeth, she brought carefully crafted stories of her daughter's happy life with a wealthy family. In reality, she'd lost track of the child after arranging her placement in a state-run orphanage, using the trust fund money to build her own secret fortune. Her position in the household grew stronger with each passing year. She managed the staff, controlled the finances, and slowly became indispensable to both Elizabeth and Arturo. When Elizabeth fell ill, Lorena was the perfect caretaker, tending to her former mistress with seeming devotion while systematically destroying any documentation that might lead back to the secret child. Elizabeth's death should have been the end of it. The trust fund was nearly drained, the adoption records buried, and Lorena's position secure. But Elizabeth's final letter to Arturo, sealed with instructions to open it upon her death, remained hidden in Lorena's private safe. The letter contained not only the truth about the child but details of the trust fund that would expose Lorena's years of theft. Now, as she surveyed her domain from the mansion's upper windows, Lorena's mind constantly worked to protect her position. She'd cultivated relationships with all of Boston's elite families, positioning herself as the keeper of their secrets. Many of them had skeletons in their closet's affairs, financial misdeeds, family scandals, and Lorena kept careful records of everything she observed. Her own suite of rooms in the mansion's east wing reflected her accumulated power. Designer clothes filled the closets, expensive art adorned the walls, and a hidden wall safe contained documents that could destroy half of Boston's prestigious families. She'd come too far, sacrificed too much, to risk losing it all now. Every morning, as she reviewed the household accounts, Lorena added to her insurance policy photographs, documents, and records that would protect her position. She knew too many secrets, held too much power, for anyone to risk exposing her. The mansion's staff feared her, the family's social circle respected her, and Arturo trusted her completely. But lately, watching Arturo's declining health, a new fear had taken root. His will named her as a beneficiary, ensuring her comfortable retirement. But if anything happened to him before Elizabeth's letter was destroyed, if the truth about the missing trust fund came to light, everything she'd built would crumble. So she watched and waited, maintaining her perfect facade while guarding against any threat to her position. The mansion had become her fortress, its secrets her weapons, and she would do anything, absolutely anything, to protect what she'd built. Those who looked closely might have seen the calculation behind her efficient manner, the steel beneath her servile smile. But no one looked closely at servants, and that had always been Lorena's greatest advantage. She was the perfect housekeeper, the trusted confidante, the keeper of secrets, and she intended to keep it that way, no matter the cost. As she completed her morning inspection of the mansion, straightening an antique vase here, adjusting a priceless painting there, Lorena allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. This was her true masterpiece, not just the perfect maintenance of a wealthy household, but the careful manipulation of lives and fortunes that had made her, in her own way, more powerful than the family she served. The autumn sun cast long shadows through the mansion's windows, and Lorena paused to check her reflection in a gilt-edged mirror. The perfect housekeeper looked back at her, grey hair immaculate, black dress pristine. Only her eyes betrayed the ruthless ambition that had carried her from poverty to power, and the determination to keep everything she'd gained, no matter who had to be sacrificed along the way. The autumn morning dawned crisp and clear as Daniela hurried through Boston's affluent Beacon Hill neighborhood, her worn nursing shoes silent on the cobblestone sidewalks. Her early shift at the elderly care center had ended, but her mother's medications needed to be administered within the hour. Time was always her enemy these days. A commotion ahead caught her attention. Through the ornate iron gates of a magnificent mansion, she saw an elderly man collapse among the roses. Without hesitation, Daniela vaulted over the low section of the fence, her medical training taking over as she ran to his side. "Sir," "Can you hear me?" She knelt beside him, quickly assessing his condition. His pulse was weak and irregular, his breathing labored, classic signs of a heart attack. The man's eyes fluttered, focusing briefly on her face before clouding with pain. Daniela began chest compressions immediately, her movements precise despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Someone call 911, she shouted toward the mansion. Between compressions, she noticed a leather portfolio had fallen from the man's grasp, its contents spilling across the garden path. For 15 grueling minutes, Daniela fought to keep him alive. Her arms ached, sweat dampened her hairline, but she refused to give up. Finally, she felt a stronger pulse beneath her hands, heard his breathing even out. The man's eyes opened fully, revealing a deep blue gaze clouded with confusion. "Elizabeth," he whispered, reaching weakly toward her face. As Daniela leaned closer to hear him better, her silver locket slipped from beneath her uniform, catching the morning light. The man's eyes widened, focusing on the crescent moon design. "That locket. Where did you?" His words were cut short by the arrival of paramedics, who quickly took over Daniela's life-saving efforts. As they prepared to transport him, Daniela quickly gathered the scattered papers, stuffing them back into the portfolio. One document caught her eye, a hospital deed with the name Arturo Morgan prominently displayed. She recognized it immediately. Morgan General was one of Boston's most prestigious private hospitals. "Wait," Arturo called weakly from the stretcher. "The papers, my documents." "I'll keep them safe," Daniela promised, clutching the portfolio. "I can bring them to the hospital later." That evening, after ensuring her mother was comfortable, Daniela made her way to Morgan General. The private suite on the top floor spoke of wealth and influence. Arturo Morgan sat propped against pillows, looking stronger but still pale. "My guardian angel returns," he said, attempting a smile. "The doctors tell me I owe you my life." Daniela placed the portfolio carefully on his bedside table. "I'm just glad I was there to help. I'm a nurse, well, almost. I work at Sunset Grove Care Center." A nurse, Arturo studied her worn clothing with new understanding. "Yet you look familiar somehow. That locket you wear." Daniela's hand went instinctively to the silver pendant. "I've had it as long as I can remember. The only thing I have from before." Before. She hesitated, then squared her shoulders. Something about this man inspired trust. "I grew up in foster care. This locket and a few scattered memories are all I have of my early years." Arturo's expression softened with compassion. "Life has not been easy for you, has it? Yet you still stopped to help others." He gestured to the portfolio. "Those documents you saved, they're worth millions. The deed to my hospital, investment papers, everything I built over a lifetime. Many would have seen an opportunity there." "I don't want your money, Mr. Morgan." The words came out more sharply than she intended. "What do you want then?" Daniela surprised herself with her answer. "Let me be your daughter for 1 week." The words hung in the air between them. Arturo's expression shifted from shock to confusion to something unreadable. Daniela rushed to explain, "I've never known what it's like to have a father, to have a real family. Just 1 week to experience what that feels like. That's all I ask in return for the documents." "You're proposing a transaction then? 1 week off. Pretend family in exchange for my life's work." "Not pretend," Daniela said softly. "Just real for a little while. I don't want inheritance or money or position. I just want to know what it feels like to have a father care about me, even if it's only for 7 days." Arturo was silent for a long moment, studying her face. Perhaps he saw something there, loneliness that matched his own, sincerity that couldn't be faked, or maybe just a shadow of someone long lost. 1 week, he finally said, "starting tomorrow. I'll have my housekeeper prepare a room." "Thank you," Daniela whispered, tears threatening. "I promise you won't regret this." We shall see. Arturo's tone was unreadable, though I warn you my household may not be as welcoming as you hope. My housekeeper, Lorena, is protective. I understand. I don't expect anything grand, just moments, conversations, maybe helping in your garden. I saw how beautiful it is. Something flickered in Arturo's eyes at the mention of the garden. Yes, well, we'll sort out the details tomorrow. For now, I need rest. Daniela nodded and turned to leave. At the door, she paused. Mr. Morgan, thank you for giving me this chance. After she left, Arturo lay back against his pillows, mind churning. The girl's request was bizarre, yet something about her tugged at his memory. That locket so similar to the one he'd given Elizabeth years ago. And when she smiled, there was something in her expression. He shook his head, dismissing the fanciful thoughts. 1 week? What harm could it do? He was lonely, she was clearly in need of kindness, and perhaps they could both find some small comfort in the arrangement. Yet as he drifted off to sleep, his dreams were troubled by half-remembered conversations with Elizabeth, whispered secrets, and the image of a silver locket catching the light of a long-ago autumn morning. In her tiny apartment, Daniela sat beside her sleeping mother, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake. The impulse to ask for that week had come from somewhere deep inside, a longing she couldn't explain. For 7 days she would have a glimpse of the life she'd always dreamed of: a father, a real home, a chance to belong somewhere. She touched the locket gently, and as always felt that strange sense of connection to something just beyond her memory. Tomorrow would begin her week as Arturo Morgan's daughter. 7 days to create memories that would have to last a lifetime. Neither of them could know that their simple arrangement would unravel decades of carefully guarded secrets, threaten powerful interests, and change both their lives forever. The autumn wind rustled through the garden, where they'd first met, carrying with it the scent of roses and the whispers of long-buried truths waiting to be discovered. As dawn broke over the Morgan estate, Lorena watched from an upstairs window as Daniela walked through the front gates. The girl's simple dress and worn shoes marked her as an outsider, yet she carried herself with an unsettling grace that made Lorena's eyes narrow with suspicion. "You can't be serious about this arrangement, Mr. Morgan," Lorena had argued the previous evening. "Letting a complete stranger into our home? After she practically blackmailed you with those documents." But Arturo had been unmoved. "It's done, Lorena. 1 week. Prepare the blue guest room." Now, as Lorena opened the front door, her greeting was arctic. "Miss Thomas, is it? Mr. Morgan is having breakfast in the conservatory. Follow me and try not to touch anything." The conservatory was Lorena's pride, every surface gleaming, rare orchids blooming in crystal vases. She watched like a hawk as Daniela passed priceless antiques and delicate porcelain. Arturo sat at a small table, morning light streaming through the glass ceiling. "Ah, Daniela. Good morning. Sleep well." "In my apartment." "Actually," Daniela replied. "I needed to care for my mother first, but I'm here now." "Your mother," Lorena interrupted. "I thought you were an orphan." "Foster care," Daniela corrected quietly. "Maria took me in when I was young. She's been my mother in every way that matters." Something flickered in Arturo's eyes. "Lorena, bring another place setting, and perhaps some of those almond croissants Elizabeth used to love." Lorena stiffened at the mention of Elizabeth but complied. As she arranged the delicate china, she studied Daniela's interaction with Arturo. The girl was clearly trying to make a good impression, her manners impeccable despite her obvious unfamiliarity with such luxury. "Tell me about your work at the care center," Arturo suggested, pouring tea. "It's challenging but rewarding. Many of our residents don't have family visitors. Sometimes all they need is someone to listen, to make them feel valued." and you provide that. I try. Music helps classical pieces especially, and gardening therapy when weather permits. Arturo's interest sharpened. You garden. Nothing like your magnificent roses, Daniela said quickly. But yes, we have a small therapeutic garden. The residents love watching things grow. It gives them hope. Perhaps Arturo hesitated. Would you like to see the main garden properly? Elizabeth, my late wife, she designed it. Lorena nearly dropped the teapot. Mr. Morgan, you never allow anyone in the private gardens. Even the groundskeepers work under strict supervision. This is different, Arturo said firmly. Come, Daniela. As they walked the winding paths, Arturo pointed out Elizabeth's favorite flowers. Daniela listened intently, occasionally asking surprisingly knowledgeable questions about soil conditions and pruning techniques. These white roses, she said suddenly, stopping by a particular bush. They smell like summer rain. Arturo finished softly. Elizabeth called them her midnight roses. She would cut them at dusk, said their fragrance was strongest then. Daniela touched a petal gently. It reminds me of something. A woman singing, maybe, but that's impossible. Just another confused childhood memory. Lorena, following at a discreet distance, felt her anxiety rising. The girl's every movement, her natural affinity for the garden, even her unconscious gestures all reminded her too much of Elizabeth. And that locket. Mr. Morgan, she called sharply. Your 10 a.m. conference call. Ah, yes, Arturo looked regretfully at the gardens. Business calls. But perhaps later, Daniela, you could help me with the deadheading. These autumn roses need attention. I'd like that, Daniela smiled. Throughout the day, Lorena watched as Daniela moved through the house. The girl seemed drawn to certain places: the music room with its grand piano, the library's window seat where Elizabeth used to read, the small greenhouse where rare orchids bloomed. The household staff whispered among themselves. Some noted her resemblance to old photos of Elizabeth, others dismissed her as a clever gold digger. Lorena encouraged the latter view, dropping subtle hints about Daniela's suspicious appearance in their lives. That evening she found Daniela in the garden, carefully pruning roses in the fading light. The girl's movements were precise, almost familiar. Those are very expensive plants, Lorena said coldly. One wrong cut could ruin them. I know what I'm doing, Daniela replied, not looking up. These need to be cut at a 45-degree angle, just above a leaf node. Like this. The correct technique, exactly as Elizabeth had always done it. Lorena felt a chill despite the warm evening. Let me be clear, she said. Whatever game you're playing, whatever you hope to gain here, it won't work. I protect this family. Daniela finally looked up, her eyes reflecting the sunset. I'm not playing any game, Mrs. Brooks. I just want to know what it feels like to have a father, even for a short time. Is that so hard to understand? What I understand is that you're a stranger who's manipulated her way into this house. 1 week may seem harmless to Mr. Morgan, but I'll be watching. One wrong move, one missing piece of silver, and you'll be out that gate faster than you can blink. Daniela carefully placed the pruning shears in their case in exactly the spot Elizabeth had always kept them. I'm sorry you feel that way, Mrs. Brooks, but I'm here at Mr. Morgan's invitation, and I intend to make the most of this week. As darkness fell, Arturo watched from his study window as Daniela finished in the garden. Something about her presence there felt right, as if the garden itself had been waiting for her. Elizabeth would have liked her, he thought. But doubt nagged at him. Was he being foolish, letting emotions cloud his judgment? The girl's request was unprecedented, possibly suspicious. Yet when she smiled, when she touched the roses with such natural grace. Your tea, Mr. Morgan, Lorena interrupted his thoughts. and perhaps we should discuss additional security measures during our guest stay." "That won't be necessary, Lorena." "But sir—" I said no. His tone was final. "Sometimes, Lorena, we must trust our hearts as well as our heads. Elizabeth taught me that." Lorena withdrew, her face unreadable. In the garden below, Daniela gathered her tools as the first stars appeared. Her silver locket caught the last light of day, twinkling like a secret about to be revealed. The first day of their unusual arrangement was ending. 6 more remained, 6 days that would test bonds of trust and loyalty, uncover long-buried secrets, and challenge everything they thought they knew about family, love, and belonging. The call came at midnight, 3 days into Daniela's week at the Morgan mansion. Her mother's neighbor, voice urgent and breaking, told her to hurry. Maria's condition had deteriorated rapidly. Arturo found Daniela in the garden, hastily gathering her things. "What's wrong?" "My mother. I have to go." Tears threatened to fall. The doctor said she had months, but— "I'll drive you," he said firmly, already calling for his car. The tiny apartment was thick with the heavy air of approaching death. Maria lay surrounded by medical equipment, her once vibrant face now hollow and grey. Her eyes lit briefly when Daniela rushed to her bedside. "My Hija," she whispered. "My beautiful girl. I must tell you." "Save your strength," Mama Daniela pleaded, clutching her mother's frail hand. "No time left? Must tell?" The truth. Maria's eyes flickered to Arturo, hovering uncertainly in the doorway. You look just like her." "Like who, Mama?" "The woman who brought you to me. Elegant, beautiful. So sad." Maria's breathing grew labored. "She paid every month, said you needed protection from someone powerful." Daniela felt the world tilt beneath her. "What are you saying?" "Not your real mother. She came one night, desperate. Said people would hurt you if they found you. Made me promise, keep you safe." Tears rolled down Maria's sunken cheeks. "The money stopped. 3 years ago, letter said. She died." "Who was she?" Daniela's voice cracked. "The woman who brought me." "Never knew her name." But the locket. Maria's hand weakly touched the silver chain around Daniela's neck. She said, "When time was right, it would lead you home." Arturo stepped closer, his face pale. "This locket, what did the woman look like?" But Maria's strength was fading fast. "Forgive me, May Hija, should have told. Sooner, love you, like my own, always." Her hand went limp in Daniela's grasp. The monitor flatlined, its harsh tone cutting through the night. Hours later, after the funeral home had taken Maria's body, Daniela sat numb in Arturo's study. He'd insisted on bringing her back to the mansion, refusing to leave her alone in the apartment. "Try to rest," he said gently. "The blue room is yours for as long as you need it." Daniela nodded absently, her fingers tracing the locket's familiar pattern. Everything she thought she knew about herself had crumbled. Who was the mysterious woman? Why had she needed protection? Sleep proved impossible. Near dawn, Daniela found herself wandering the mansion's quiet halls. The library door stood ajar, moonlight spilling across ancient hardwood floors. Something drew her to the far corner, where a delicate writing desk sat beneath a portrait of Elizabeth Morgan. The desk's surface was immaculate, but something about the worn brass handle of the bottom drawer caught her attention. Inside, beneath perfectly arranged papers, her fingers found a false bottom. Hidden beneath was a leather-bound book, Elizabeth Morgan's diary. Hands trembling, Daniela began to read. April 15th, 1999. My darling daughter turns 3 today, somewhere out there. My heart aches to hold her, to see if her eyes have stayed that striking blue. Lorena brings reports of her happiness with her new family, but it's not enough. Arturo suspects nothing of her existence, the shame of my first marriage, the pregnancy I hid to protect his reputation, and our love. But oh, how I miss her." Daniela's heart pounded. Elizabeth had a secret child, the dates aligned with her own early years, but surely it was coincidence. June 21st, 1999. "I've arranged a trust fund through Lorena. My daughter will want for nothing, even if I can never claim her. The locket I left with her matches my own. When she's old enough to understand, it will lead her back to us. To the garden where I sang her to sleep those precious first months." The diary slipped from Daniela's numb fingers, her locket identical to the one in Elizabeth's portrait. The garden that felt so familiar. The memories of a woman singing. Finding some late-night reading. Daniela spun to find Lorena in the doorway, face hard in the moonlight. This diary. Elizabeth Morgan had a daughter before marrying Arturo. Eyes and fantasies, Lorena snapped, snatching the book. Elizabeth was unwell near the end, imagined all sorts of things. But my locket. "The trust fund," Maria said. "Your mother was dying. People say all kinds of things when death approaches." Lorena's voice dripped contempt. "I suggest you forget whatever pathetic scheme you're plotting. One word from me about your snooping, and your weaker family ends now." She stormed out, taking the diary. But she couldn't take the words Daniela had read, or the questions they raised. Elizabeth's secret child would be exactly Daniela's age. The locket, the garden memories, Maria's deathbed confession, pieces of a puzzle were clicking into place. Dawn found Daniela in the garden, beside Elizabeth's beloved roses. Had she once toddled these paths, held by the elegant woman in the portrait? Was her entire life a carefully constructed lie? "You're up early." She turned to find Arturo watching her, his face troubled. "I couldn't sleep. Too many questions. About your mother's revelations." "About everything." Daniela hesitated. "Mr. Morgan, did Elizabeth ever mention? I mean, before she married you?" "What are you asking, Daniela?" But before she could continue, Lorena appeared. "Mr. Morgan, your lawyers are on the phone. Something about the hospital board meeting." Arturo sighed. "We'll talk later, Daniela. Try to rest." As he walked away, Daniela touched the silver locket. Somewhere in this mansion lay answers about her past. Elizabeth's diary had been only the beginning. She had 4 days left to uncover the truth, but Lorena would fight her every step of the way. In her private rooms, Lorena paced frantically. The diary's discovery threatened everything. She thought all evidence was destroyed, all tracks covered. But if Daniela connected the dots, if Arturo learned the truth about his wife's child and the missing trust fund, she had to act fast. The girl must be discredited, driven out before she could expose decades of careful deception. Yet watching Daniela in the garden, seeing Elizabeth's grace in every movement, Lorena felt the weight of her betrayal anew. "I had no choice," she whispered to Elizabeth's portrait. "You trusted the wrong person with your secrets, old friend. And now your daughter has come home to roost." The autumn sun climbed higher, warming the garden where mother and daughter had once walked. Soon long-buried truths would rise to the surface, changing all their lives forever. But for now, the roses kept their counsel, waiting for the right moment to reveal their final secrets. In the late afternoon, Daniela observed Lorena's increasingly erratic behavior from the library window. The housekeeper made her third trip to the garden shed, emerging each time with different papers hastily stuffed into her apron. Something about her furtive movements set off warning bells in Daniela's nursing-trained mind. "Like a patient trying to hide symptoms," she murmured, watching Lorena glance nervously over her shoulder. Taking advantage of Lorena's absence, Daniela slipped into the housekeeper's private office. The room was meticulously organized, every file labeled with precise handwriting, but one drawer in the antique desk remained persistently locked. Her fingers traced the silver locket as she contemplated her next move. "When the time is right, it will lead you home," Maria had said. Making a decision, Daniela removed the locket and examined it closely for the first time in years. There, hidden in the decorative edging, she found tiny numbers scratched into the silver. The drawer clicked open on the first try. Inside, beneath perfectly maintained household accounts, lay a treasure trove of deception. Bank statements showed systematic transfers from a trust fund, Elizabeth's trust fund, for her secret daughter into offshore accounts. Forged adoption papers, letters from Elizabeth to her child that had never been sent. "What are you doing?" Daniela whirled to find Lorena in the doorway, face livid. "The trust fund," Daniela said quietly. "You stole it all, didn't you?" "You understand nothing," Lorena's voice shook. "I earned that money, watching over this family for 30 years while Elizabeth played lady of the manor with her precious gardens and guilty conscience. You were supposed to protect her daughter. Instead, you robbed her." "I protected this family's reputation. That child would have destroyed everything Elizabeth built with Arturo. She trusted me to handle it, and I did my way." Through the window, Daniela saw Arturo returning from his hospital board meeting. "He deserves to know the truth." "Truth?" Lorena laughed bitterly. "You want truth? Elizabeth was a foolish girl who got pregnant by a fortune hunter. I saved her, gave her a chance at real happiness with Arturo. That money was my reward." "And her daughter? Did she deserve to grow up in poverty, wondering why she was abandoned?" "Better that than destroying this family with scandal. Elizabeth knew that in the end." "Did she? Or did you manipulate her like you've manipulated everyone else?" Daniela reached for the documents, but Lorena moved with surprising speed, snatching them away. "You've overplayed your hand, girl. One word from me about you snooping through private papers, and your little fantasy of playing daughter ends now." Mrs. Brooks Arturo's voice came from the hallway. "Is everything all right?" "Fine," so Lorena called smoothly, her mask of efficiency sliding back into place, "just explaining proper boundaries to our guest." But as Arturo appeared in the doorway, a bank statement slipped from Lorena's grasp. His eyes narrowed as he caught the heading Elizabeth Morgan Trust. "What is this?" he demanded, picking up the paper. "Nothing, sir. Old accounts. These transfers, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Where did this money go?" "I can explain." But more papers had scattered across the floor. Adoption documents, trust fund statements, Elizabeth's unsent letters. "My God," Arturo whispered, reading quickly. "Elizabeth had a child? Before me. And you knew." Lorena's composure cracked. She begged me to help her hide it. The scandal would have ruined everything. I only did what was necessary. By stealing the money she left for her daughter, Daniela's voice was quiet but firm. "You shut up," Lorena rounded on her. "You come here with your convenient story and your fake locket, trying to worm your way into this family." "Fake locket," Arturo interrupted. "What do you mean?" Lorena realized her mistake too late. I only meant." "This locket," Daniela said, holding it out. "Maria said the woman who gave me to her left it with me, that it would lead me home someday." Arturo took it with trembling hands. "I gave this to Elizabeth on our first anniversary. She wore it until his voice broke, until she gave it to her baby daughter, the night Lorena took the child away." "She never meant for the girl to end up in foster care," Lorena said desperately. "I was supposed to find a good family, but things got complicated. The money was just sitting there." "Where is she?" Arturo demanded. "Elizabeth's daughter, what happened to her?" "I don't know. I lost track of her after the state home in Brighton. It was safer that way." "Brighton Children's Home," Daniela's voice was barely a whisper. I grew up there, until Maria adopted me. The silence that followed was deafening. Arturo stared at Daniela, really looked at her, seeing Elizabeth in every feature. "The garden," he said softly. "You knew exactly how to tend the roses, and the way you hum when you work Elizabeth's song." "I remember someone singing to me," Daniela said, tears falling. "In the garden at night, the scent of roses." "Your mother's voice," Arturo confirmed. "She would walk for hours with you among the flowers, singing lullabies." Morena backed toward the door. "You can't prove any of this. The adoption records are sealed. The trust fund transfers were all legal." "Legal?" Arturo's voice cracked like a whip. "You stole from my wife's daughter, left her in poverty while you lined your pockets with her inheritance. I protected this family's reputation. Everything I did was for this house, this name." "Get out!" Arturo's voice was ice. "The police will handle the financial investigation. Get out of my house before I have you arrested now." "You'll regret this," Lorena spat. "Both of you. I know every secret in this house, every skeleton in every closet." "The only skeleton," Daniela said quietly, "is what you did to an innocent child. To my mother, to this family." Lorena fled, leaving behind 30 years of carefully constructed deception. In the sudden silence, father and daughter faced each other across a gulf of lost years. "All this time," Arturo whispered, "you were right here, Elizabeth's daughter, my daughter. I never imagined, when I asked for 1 week as your daughter. You already were. You always were." As night fell over the garden Elizabeth had loved, 2 lost souls began the long journey of healing. And somewhere, perhaps a mother's spirit smiled as her greatest wish was finally fulfilled. Her daughter had found her way home. The days following Lorena's departure brought a delicate dance of discovery between Arturo and Daniela. Each morning found them in Elizabeth's garden, working side by side as dawn painted the roses in soft gold. Their conversations started hesitantly, like shy birds testing their wings. She loved the white roses best, Arturo would say, demonstrating the precise angle for pruning, said they reminded her of wedding lace. I remember. Daniela paused, uncertain. "At least I think I remember someone lifting me to smell them. Was that Elizabeth? She'd hold you up every evening to kiss the roses goodnight. You were barely 2. These fragments of shared memory became their bridge, each small revelation drawing them closer. Arturo found himself studying her face, seeing Elizabeth's grace in every movement, discovering his own expressions in her quiet determination. The garden became their sanctuary. Together they cleared decades of overgrowth, uncovering paths Elizabeth had planned but never completed. Daniela's nursing knowledge proved unexpectedly valuable as they established a therapeutic section with raised beds and gentle slopes. "We can make it accessible for wheelchairs," she explained, sketching plans in the soil with a stick. "The residents from Sunset Grove could visit. Being in nature, touching living things, it helps heal the spirit." Arturo watched her passionate explanation, heart swelling with pride. "Your mother would have loved that idea. She always said gardens should be shared." But not everyone welcomed their growing bond. The news of Daniela's true identity spread through Boston's elite social circles like wildfire. Elizabeth's carefully hidden scandal became fodder for vicious gossip. Sarah, Arturo's daughter-in-law, arrived unannounced one morning, her face tight with disapproval. "Really, Arturo? Accepting this stranger's wild claims without proof? What would Michael think?" "DNA tests confirmed it last week," Arturo replied calmly, though his hands shook slightly. "Daniela is Elizabeth's daughter, my daughter." "A convenient miracle," Sarah scoffed. "Just when you're revising your will. Have you considered what this means for Amy's inheritance?" Sarah, Arturo's voice held warning. "No, let me finish. Michael was your only child. Amy is your only legitimate grandchild. This interloper. That's enough. Arturo rarely raised his voice, but now it cracked like thunder. Daniela is as much my daughter as Michael was my son. Elizabeth kept her existence secret to protect our family's reputation, a mistake I refuse to compound by rejecting her now. Sarah's face reddened. The board of directors won't accept this. A secret love child appearing after all these years? The hospital's reputation. The hospital I built, Arturo interrupted, will be stronger for embracing truth and compassion over empty social pretense. Daniela, who had been quietly tending roses during this exchange, finally spoke. I don't want anything from you, Sarah. No inheritance, no position, no social standing. I only want to know my family. How noble, Sarah sneered. We'll see how long that lasts. But Daniela's actions spoke louder than any protests. She continued her volunteer work at Sunset Grove, refusing Arturo's offers to quit. Her small apartment was maintained, though she now spent most nights in the mansion. When the hospital board met to discuss the situation, she declined to attend. Your life's work is yours, she told Arturo. I have my own path. Her quiet dignity began winning over even the harshest critics. The garden's transformation became a talking point in social circles, particularly after Daniela organized the first therapeutic session for elderly patients. Watching wheelchairs navigate the newly accessible paths, seeing arthritic hands touch soft petals, hearing delighted exclamations over butterfly gardens and herb beds, the project's value became undeniable. Arturo found himself rediscovering joy through Daniela's eyes. Her wonder at small luxuries he took for granted, her gentle way with staff and patients alike, her unflagging dedication to serving others all reminded him of Elizabeth's best qualities. They developed comfortable routines. Morning garden work, followed by shared breakfasts where they pored over Elizabeth's old garden journals. Evenings often found them in the library, Daniela reading aloud from Elizabeth's favorite books, while Arturo listened, remembering similar nights with his wife. She marked this passage, Daniela said one evening, showing him Elizabeth's delicate marginalia, about love being stronger than pride. She underlined that the day she told me she was pregnant with Michael, Arturo recalled softly, said it gave her courage. Do you think? Did she want to tell you about me? Before. Every day, according to her diary. But fear held her back, fear of scandal, of losing what we'd built together. He sighed heavily. I wish she'd trusted me more. She did trust you, Daniela said gently. She just didn't trust society to understand. Their healing wasn't always smooth. Daniela sometimes withdrew, overwhelmed by the weight of her new identity. Arturo struggled with guilt over the years lost, but slowly, surely they forged a relationship uniquely their own. The garden flourished under their combined care. Elizabeth's original vision expanded to include healing spaces and quiet corners for reflection. Daniela's medical knowledge merged with Arturo's business acumen to create something truly special. We should open it to the public, she suggested one autumn evening. Not just patients, anyone who needs peace. Arturo studied the garden's new paths, the carefully planned therapeutic areas, the beauty his daughter had helped create. Elizabeth's garden, he said finally, a healing space for the community. That's what we'll call it. But as their bond strengthened, opposition grew more determined. Anonymous letters arrived, hinting at past scandals. Hospital board members questioned Arturo's judgment. Sarah's lawyers began investigating ways to contest any change in inheritance. Through it all, Daniela remained focused on their shared work. Her quiet strength anchored Arturo, while his unwavering support gave her confidence to face the criticism. They'll adjust, he assured her, after a particularly vicious society event where several old friends had snubbed them. True family is worth any amount of social discomfort. Daniela touched her mother's locket. now restored to its original shine. I used to dream of belonging somewhere. Now I realize belonging isn't about place or position, it's about love. The garden continued its transformation, much like their relationship. New growth emerged from old roots, stronger for the careful tending. Elizabeth's roses bloomed more vigorously than ever, as if celebrating the family's reunion. Together, father and daughter created something neither could have managed alone. The garden became a symbol of their journey, beauty rising from hidden seeds, strength emerging through adversity, love transcending time and social barriers. As autumn deepened into winter, their initial week of playing family had blossomed into something real and lasting. But darker forces were gathering, threatening to destroy everything they'd built. Lorena's desperate final threats would prove more dangerous than anyone suspected, and the greatest test of their newfound bond still lay ahead. For now, though, they worked in peaceful companionship, healing the garden and themselves. Elizabeth's spirit seemed to walk beside them, her love finally free to nurture the family she'd always dreamed of uniting. The roses bloomed on, witnesses to a love stronger than secrets, a bond deeper than blood, and a garden's power to heal even the deepest wounds of the heart. As winter approached, Daniela began methodically piecing together her fractured past. Each evening after garden work, she sat in Elizabeth's study, surrounded by old photographs and documents Lorena had failed to destroy. "I found something," she told Arturo one night, spreading papers across his desk. Bank records from the orphanage. Regular payments stopped abruptly in 1999, the same month Lorena began making large deposits to her Cayman account. Arturo studied the documents, his face darkening. "She didn't just steal your trust fund. She actively ensured you'd remain in poverty, cutting off the orphanage's support." Meanwhile, across town, Lorena was orchestrating her revenge. In a small apartment filled with 30 years of carefully collected secrets, she made phone calls to tabloid reporters, society columnists, and hospital board members. "Did you know Arturo Morgan's new daughter has a criminal record?" she'd whisper, letting the lie spread like poison. "Ask about the missing hospital funds since she arrived." The allegations, though false, found fertile ground. Whispers became headlines. Morgan Ayres' dark past revealed hospital board questions new daughter's influence. Sarah seized the opportunity, calling an emergency board meeting. "We must address these concerns," she insisted. "The hospital's reputation is built on helping people." Arturo interrupted. "Something Daniela has done her entire life." But the pressure took its toll. Daniela's nursing shifts became uncomfortable as wealthy patients requested different caregivers. Her therapeutic garden program faced sudden budget reviews. Then Lorena escalated. Anonymous letters arrived at the mansion containing photos of Elizabeth in her darkest moments, hospital visits, tear-stained and desperate, as she fought to hide her pregnancy. "She doesn't need to see these," Arturo insisted, trying to shield Daniela. "I need to know everything," Daniela replied firmly. "No more secrets." The strain began affecting Arturo's health. His heart condition, manageable before, grew worse under the constant stress. Daniela noticed the signs first: shortness of breath, subtle color changes, his hands shaking as he worked in the garden. "You need rest," she insisted one morning, finding him pale and sweating after minimal exertion. "I'm fine," he protested. "These roses won't prune themselves." "The roses can wait. Your heart can't." She shifted seamlessly into nurse mode, checking his pulse, adjusting medications, insisting on regular rest periods. Their garden work adapted. She took on the heavier tasks while teaching him to focus on detailed, less strenuous activities. But Lorena had saved her worst weapon for last. She leaked Elizabeth's private medical records to the press, revealing a history of mental health struggles during her pregnancy. Sources question if hereditary instability affects Morgan's newfound heir, the headlines blared. The suggestion of mental illness, that old social stigma, did what accusations of criminality couldn't. Hospital donors began withdrawing support. Board members whispered about liability concerns. Arturo fought back furiously, but the stress triggered a massive heart attack. Daniela found him collapsed in Elizabeth's garden, eerily similar to their first meeting. The following weeks tested them both. Daniela barely left his hospital room, using her medical knowledge to monitor his care while defending their family from constant attacks. "You should rest," Arturo whispered one night, watching her check his vital signs for the 100th time. "So should you," she smiled, adjusting his pillows. "But we Morgans are stubborn that way." Her casual claim of the family name brought tears to his eyes. Despite everything Lorena had tried, their bond had only strengthened. "Elizabeth would be proud of you," he said softly. "Your compassion, your strength, you're everything she hoped you'd become." "I wish," Daniela hesitated, "I wish I had clearer memories of her." "Perhaps that's our next project," Arturo suggested. "When I'm stronger, we'll go through her things together, really get to know her." But full recovery remained elusive. Though Arturo's physical health improved, the constant stress of defending their family took its toll. Daniela watched him growing weaker, torn between protecting him from ugly rumors and honoring his right to fight for their relationship. The garden, their shared sanctuary, withered under winter frost and neglect. Yet even as the roses slept, father and daughter's bond grew stronger. Each health crisis, each public attack, only reinforced their determination to preserve the family they'd discovered. "We'll replant in spring," Daniela promised, watching snow settle on Elizabeth's beloved roses, stronger roots this time, plants that can weather any storm. Arturo squeezed her hand weakly. "Like us." As winter deepened, they faced their challenges together: a father's failing health, a daughter's questioned identity, and a garden waiting to bloom again. But darker revelations still lurked in Elizabeth's past, secrets even Lorena didn't know, waiting to test their newfound bond to its very limits. The snow fell silently over the sleeping garden, covering the thorns and fading blooms in pristine white. Spring seemed impossibly distant, yet beneath the frozen ground, strong roots held fast, waiting for the chance to grow anew. The winter storm raged outside Boston General Hospital as Daniela made her final rounds. Most staff had left early due to weather, leaving the private wing eerily quiet. In Arturo's room, monitors beeped steadily as he slept, recovering from his latest cardiac episode. A movement in the doorway caught her attention. Lorena stood there, elegant despite her exile, snowflakes melting on her dark coat. "Visiting hours are over," Daniela said quietly, not wanting to wake Arturo. "How convenient. Just you, your father, and an array of lethal medications." Lorena's smile was cold as the storm outside. "Do you know how easy it would be to adjust his dosage? A tragic accident during a blizzard." "Get out before I call security." "You've ruined everything I built over 30 years. Did you think I'd just disappear?" "Whatever you're planning." "Oh, I've already planned it and executed it." Lorena withdrew an envelope from her coat. "These records show you stealing drugs from the hospital, small amounts over several weeks, building up to tonight's tragic overdose of dear Arturo's heart medication." Daniela's blood ran cold. "You forged medical records?" Who would question them? The mysterious daughter, suddenly appearing in his life, now caught hastening her inheritance. "They'll find the stolen drugs in your locker, traces in his system." "You're insane." "No, my dear, I'm thorough. Like I was 30 years ago, handling Elizabeth's unfortunate problem." Arturo's voice, weak but clear, cut through the tension. "What problem, Lorena?" Both women turned. Arturo had awakened, his face pale but alert. "Nothing that concerns you," Lorena snapped. Everything about Elizabeth concerns me, especially now his fingers found the call button. Tell me what you did to my wife." Lorena's composure cracked. I protected her, protected all of us. When she wanted to keep the baby, expose the scandal, I had to act. "What are you saying?" Daniela whispered. "She wasn't going to give you up. Had all these romantic notions about raising you herself, scandal be damned. So I helped her see reason. You threatened her," Arturo realized, "blackmailed her into giving up our daughter." She was hysterical, unreasonable. I simply reminded her what she had to lose: her marriage, her position, your love. She never would have lost my love. No, you were already suspicious, watching her closer. One more month and you'd have noticed her pregnancy. So I gave her a choice: give up the child or lose everything. Security arrived, responding to Arturo's call, but he waved them back. Let her finish. Lorena laughed bitterly. Finish? Why not? You've already taken everything else. Yes, I forced Elizabeth to give up her precious baby. Told her if she ever revealed the truth, I'd ensure the child disappeared permanently. She fought at first, but when I described certain accidents that could befall an infant..." Daniela stumbled back, horrified. "You threatened to kill me, your own goddaughter." Goddaughter? Now it was Lorena's turn to pale. "Elizabeth's diary," Arturo said quietly. "She named you Daniela's godmother before giving her up. Said she chose you because she trusted you above anyone." The weight of this betrayal seemed to physically age Lorena. She sank into a chair, her carefully maintained facade crumbling. "I didn't know. She never told me." "No," said Arturo. "By then she knew what you really were." Security officers moved forward again, but Lorena rallied one last time. "It doesn't matter. The forged records are already in the system. By morning, your precious daughter will be arrested for attempted murder." "I don't think so." Daniela held up her phone. "I've been recording since you walked in. Your confession, your threats, everything." "You can't. Enough." Arturo's voice, though weak, held authority. "Officers, please arrest Mrs. Brooks. The charges are attempted murder, blackmail, and fraud. My lawyers will provide details." As security led Lorena away, she turned back one last time. Elizabeth was weak. She'd have ruined everything we built, all for sentiment. "No," Daniela said softly. "She was strong enough to love despite fear. Something you never understood." After Lorena disappeared, Daniela sank into the chair beside Arturo's bed. "I'm so sorry. All these years she was there, poisoning everything." "Don't apologize for her sins," he took her hand. "But there's something you should see." From his bedside drawer, he withdrew a yellowed envelope. Elizabeth left this with her lawyer, to be opened if anything happened to her. I received it yesterday. Inside was a single photograph and a letter. The photo showed Elizabeth holding an infant, her face radiant with love. The letter began, "My dearest Arturo, if you're reading this, the truth about our daughter has finally come to light." Daniela read through tears as Elizabeth explained everything: her first marriage to a man who abandoned her, discovering her pregnancy after falling in love with Arturo, her desperate attempt to protect both her child and her new chance at happiness. "Lorena seemed a godsend at first," Elizabeth wrote, "but she turned my fear against me, forced me to choose between my babies, the daughter I had to hide and the son we would have together. I chose wrong, letting fear win over love. I can only pray that someday you'll both forgive me." "There's nothing to forgive," Arturo whispered, watching Daniela cry. She did her best in an impossible situation. She loved us both so much. Yes, and now we can honor that love properly. As the storm raged outside, father and daughter began healing from revelations too long buried. Elizabeth's letter ended with hope love will find a way to unite you. I believe that with all my heart. When it does, remember that I am watching over you both forever. The truth, finally revealed, had cost them dearly, but as dawn broke over fresh snow, it brought with it the promise of a new beginning, one built on truth, understanding, and the unshakable bond between parent and child. In her cell, Lorena faced the consequences of decades of manipulation. In the hospital room, Arturo and Daniela faced their future, strengthened by understanding their past. And somewhere, perhaps, Elizabeth's spirit finally found peace, seeing her greatest wish fulfilled, her family united, their love stronger than any secret. The morning newspapers hit Boston's elite breakfast tables like bombs. Morgan family scandal, trusted housekeeper S. decades of deception exposed, screamed the headlines. Daniela's recorded confession had been leaked, though not by the Morgans. Sarah burst into Arturo's hospital room, waving the paper. "My God, Arturo, is it true? Lorena really tried to murder me," he finished calmly. "Yes, all to keep her past crimes hidden." But these revelations about Elizabeth, the blackmail, the threats, are all true. Daniela entered with fresh flowers for Arturo's room, though I wish they weren't, for everyone's sake. Sarah stared at her, seeing for the first time not an interloper but a victim. "You were just a baby." And she threatened to. "Some people will do anything to maintain power," Arturo said quietly, "even destroy an innocent child." The hospital board convened an emergency session. Recordings of Lorena's confession played in the hushed boardroom, followed by evidence of her financial manipulation. Decades of theft, carefully hidden beneath impeccable bookkeeping. "There's more," announced Harrison Wells, the board's chairman. "Our audit revealed Lorena was blackmailing several board members, their families' private medical records stolen from hospital files. That's how she maintained control," Daniela realized. "Fear and secrets, just like with Elizabeth." The tide of public opinion turned swiftly. Society matrons who'd snubbed Daniela now claimed they'd always suspected something wasn't right about that. Lorena hospital donors who'd withdrawn support returned, praising the Morgan family's courage in facing adversity. But the most significant intervention came from an unexpected source. Amy, Sarah's teenage daughter, arrived at the hospital clutching a gift for her newly discovered aunt. "I found this in Mom's attic," she explained, presenting Daniela with a dusty photo album. "It's full of pictures of Dad as a baby. And look, there's one of Elizabeth holding him, and is that you?" The photograph showed Elizabeth in the garden, cradling baby Michael, while a toddler with Daniela's features played nearby. On the back, Elizabeth's handwriting, "My two precious children, if only for a moment." Sarah's hands trembled as she examined the photo. Michael never knew he had a sister. All these years. "Elizabeth found ways to keep us together, even if we didn't know it," Daniela said softly. "She made sure there were traces, proof of her love waiting to be found." The family gathering expanded as more relatives arrived, drawn by the scandal but staying for reconciliation. Cousins shared stories of Elizabeth's kindness. Aunts remembered her occasional sadness. Pieces of the past clicked into place. "She used to visit the orphanage," one elderly aunt recalled. "Said she was doing charity work, but now I realize she was checking on her daughter." Arturo finished, finding ways to stay connected without risking Lorena's threats. Sarah's resistance finally crumbled. "I've been horrible to you, Daniela. Protecting Amy's inheritance seemed so important, but after hearing what that woman did—" "You were protecting your daughter," Daniela said gently, "just like Elizabeth tried to protect me." The family intervention became a healing session. Old grievances aired, past misunderstandings cleared. Amy insisted on taking Daniela shopping. Because aunts should spoil their nieces, Sarah offered her social connections to help restore the garden program. Even the hospital staff joined in, sharing stories of Elizabeth's secret kindnesses, paying poor patients' bills, establishing anonymous scholarships. Her legacy of compassion lived on in the daughter she'd been forced to surrender. As evening fell, the family gathered in Arturo's room. Stories flowed freely now, tears and laughter mingling as they rebuilt bonds too long broken. Elizabeth would have loved this, Arturo said, watching Amy show Daniela old family photos. All she ever wanted was for her children to know each other. We do now, Sarah said firmly, and nothing, no scandal, no threats, no old prejudices will separate us again. The healing wasn't instant or complete. Too many years had passed, too many wounds festered. But as the family united against Lorena's poison, they found strength in their shared love for Elizabeth and her dreams of unity. In her cell, Lorena received news of the family's reconciliation with bitter resignation. Her weapons, secrets, shame and social pressure had lost their power in the face of truth and forgiveness. The garden waited under winter snow, dormant but not dead. Come spring, it would bloom again, tended by hands united in love rather than divided by secrets. Elizabeth's legacy would live on, not in scandal as Lorena had threatened, but in the restored bonds between parent and child, sister and brother, past and present. The intervention had done more than clear Daniela's name. It had fulfilled Elizabeth's deepest wish that love would ultimately prove stronger than fear, truth mightier than deception, and family bonds more enduring than any social construct. As night fell over Boston, the Morgan family stood united, stronger for having faced their demons together. Elizabeth's garden would bloom again, and this time all her children would walk its paths in peace. The winter light faded early on a February evening as Daniela noticed the first alarming signs. Arturo, seemingly recovered from his heart attack, suddenly struggled to breathe during their daily garden planning session. His skin took on a greyish tinge that her medical training recognized all too well. "Just need a moment," he gasped, clutching the edge of Elizabeth's antique garden table. "No, you need a hospital." Now, Daniela's voice remained calm, though her heart raced. She'd seen that look before in patients facing critical cardiac events. The ambulance arrived within minutes, but the journey to Boston General felt endless. Daniela held his hand, monitoring his pulse, whispering encouragement. "Stay with me, Father. Please stay with me." It was the first time she'd called him that directly. His eyes flickered open briefly, a faint smile crossing his pale features before pain claimed him again. The emergency team worked through the night. Daniela paced the waiting room, her nurse's knowledge making every passing minute more terrifying. She knew too well what those grim expressions and hurried consultations meant. Sarah arrived near dawn, Amy in tow. The teenage girl threw herself into Daniela's arms. "He'll be okay, won't he, Aunt Dani? He has to be okay." Before Daniela could answer, the cardiac specialist emerged. His face told them everything before he spoke. "The damage is extensive," he explained gently. "Mr. Morgan's heart. There's only so much we can do." "How long?" Sarah's voice cracked. "Days, maybe weeks. We can make him comfortable, but..." Daniela felt her world tilting. She'd only just found her father, just begun to heal decades of separation. Now time, that merciless enemy, was stealing him away. They took turns sitting with him. Daniela used her medical leave to stay nearby, monitoring his care with professional precision and daughter's devotion. During quiet nights, she read to him from Elizabeth's journals, sharing memories of the mother she'd barely known through the words she'd left behind. One evening, as spring's first tentative warmth touched the hospital windows, Arturo rallied enough to make a request. "Take me home," he whispered. "To the garden. I want to see it one last time." The doctors advised against it, but Daniela understood. Elizabeth's garden was where their story had begun and where it should end. With medical supervision and careful planning, they transferred him home. A hospital bed was placed in the conservatory, surrounded by early spring blooms Daniela had nurtured through the winter. "Look," she said softly, pointing to Elizabeth's white roses. "The first buds are appearing." "Your mother's favorites," he smiled weakly. She always said, "New life comes after the hardest winters." The family gathered close. Sarah had moved back temporarily, helping manage hospital business. Amy spent afternoons doing homework beside her grandfather's bed, filling him in on teenage dramas and future dreams. Daniela divided her time between nursing duties and working in the garden he could see from his window. Sometimes she caught him watching her, his expression a mix of pride and profound sadness. "You have her grace," he said one evening. "The way you move among the flowers. Just like Elizabeth." "Tell me more about her," Daniela encouraged, holding his increasingly frail hand. "Help me know her better." So he shared stories of their courtship, their dreams for the garden, the joy and guilt Elizabeth carried about her secret daughter. Each word was precious now, building bridges across time and loss. As his strength faded, Arturo made one final request. "Promise me, promise you'll keep the garden alive, not just the flowers, but what it represents. Hope, healing, love that survives all winters." "I promise," Daniela whispered, tears falling. "It will always be Elizabeth's garden, a place of healing for everyone who needs it." The end came peacefully on a mild spring morning. Daniela was reading from Elizabeth's favorite poetry book when she noticed the change in his breathing. The family rushed in, but there was no fear or panic, only love surrounding him as he slipped away. His last words were, "For Daniela, thank you for bringing spring back to our garden." The roses bloomed early that year, as if Elizabeth and Arturo together were painting the garden in shades of love and memory. Standing among them, Daniela felt their presence, the mother she'd barely known, the father she'd found too late, united at last in the paradise they'd created. The garden would go on, offering healing to others as it had healed their family. And in every bloom, every sunrise, every moment of peace found among the flowers, their love would live forever. In the somber days following Arturo's funeral, Daniela immersed herself in garden work, finding solace among the blooms her parents had loved. The law firm's call, requesting her presence for the will reading, came as an unwelcome intrusion on her grief. The old office was crowded when she arrived. Sarah, Amy, hospital board members, and various relatives filled the leather chairs, their expressions ranging from sympathy to barely concealed curiosity. A large television screen dominated one wall, its purpose unclear. "Before we proceed," announced Harrison Wells, the family lawyer, "there's something you all need to see." He pressed a button, and Elizabeth's face appeared on the screen. Daniela gasped. The video, dated just months before Elizabeth's death, showed her mother sitting in the garden, surrounded by her beloved roses. Though illness had taken its toll, her grace remained untouched. "My dearest family," Elizabeth's recorded voice filled the room. "If you're watching this, the truth about our daughter has finally come to light. Arturo, my love, forgive me for not telling you sooner. Daniela, my precious child, forgive me for letting fear separate us." Tears flowed freely as Elizabeth explained everything: her first marriage, Lorena's manipulation, the desperate choices she'd made. But it was her next words that stunned the room to silence. "What few knew, not even Lorena, was that I never completely abandoned my daughter. Every month I deposited half my personal inheritance into a separate trust fund, not the one Lorena knew about and stole, but one hidden even from her. 20 years of savings, growing silently, waiting for this day." Harrison paused the video to distribute documents. "Mrs. Morgan established this second trust through our firm, with strict instructions that it remain sealed until both she and Mr. Morgan had passed, and DNA confirmed her daughter's identity." Daniela stared at the papers. The amount was staggering, millions accumulated over decades of a mother's secret devotion. The video continued, Elizabeth's voice stronger now. But money means nothing without love. My final request is that Elizabeth's garden become a healing center, open to all who need its peace. Daniela, you've already begun this work without knowing it was your inheritance. Make it your life's mission, as it was mine. Sarah stood suddenly. There's something else you should see. She withdrew an old journal from her bag. I found this in Michael's things. He knew about you, Daniela. Elizabeth told him when he was 18. The journal contained Michael's private thoughts about his secret sister. His desire to find her, his understanding of why his mother had to hide the truth, his hope that someday their family would be whole. He made me promise, Sarah said softly, that if the truth ever came out, I'd make sure his sister knew she was always loved, always part of our family. I'm so sorry it took me so long to honor that promise. The surprises weren't over. Hospital board members revealed Elizabeth had arranged for permanent funding for the garden therapy program. Distant relatives brought forward letters she'd written, each containing pieces of the puzzle she'd hoped would someday reunite her family. But the greatest shock came from an unexpected source. Amy, who'd been quietly typing on her phone, suddenly spoke up. I found something in Grandma Elizabeth's old sheet music, she announced, a composition she wrote but never played. It's called Lullaby for Daniela. The handwritten score, yellow with age, bore marginalia in Elizabeth's writing for my firstborn, though I cannot sing to you, my heart writes this melody. Someday, when you find your way home, may it help you remember how deeply you were loved. Daniela traced the notes with trembling fingers. Fragments of memory stirred a soft voice humming in a moonlit garden, the scent of roses, a melody she'd carried in her heart without knowing its source. There's more, Harrison said gently. Elizabeth left detailed journals documenting every time she saw you at the orphanage, every secret visit, every silent vigil outside your school. She never stopped watching over you, even when she couldn't acknowledge you. The revelations transformed Daniela's understanding of her past. She hadn't been abandoned, she'd been fiercely loved, protected from afar by parents who never stopped yearning for her. Elizabeth's final words on the video brought healing to them. All love finds its way through the darkest winters, blooms in the most unlikely gardens. Let our family's pain end here. Let healing begin, nurtured by truth and forgiveness, growing stronger with each passing season. As twilight settled over Boston, Daniela walked alone in Elizabeth's garden. The trust fund, the revelations, Michael's acceptance, all were precious gifts. But the greatest treasure was understanding how deeply she'd been loved, even when that love had to remain hidden. Among the roses her mother had planted, beneath stars her father had watched, Daniela finally felt complete. The garden would become her life's work, a legacy of healing growing from seeds of love planted long ago, waiting patiently through winter's darkest days for spring's renewal. 5 years after Arturo's passing, Elizabeth's garden bloomed more beautifully than ever. The once private sanctuary had transformed into a renowned healing center, where medical science merged with nature's gentle therapy. Daniela, now director of both the garden and the hospital's innovative therapeutic programs, watched elderly patients find peace among the roses her mother had planted. Lorena, serving time for her crimes, had written a full confession, finally unburdening herself of decades of manipulation. Her testimony helped heal old wounds, though some scars would always remain. The money she'd stolen was recovered and redirected to the garden's charitable programs, turning past corruption into future hope. Sarah had become the hospital's CEO, working closely with Daniela to expand their therapeutic services. Their once strained relationship had blossomed into true sisterhood. Amy, now in medical school, spent summers interning at the garden, combining her grandmother's love of healing with her father's dedication to medicine. One autumn morning, exactly 6 years after Daniela first saved Arturo's life, a special ceremony gathered the family together. The garden's new wing, dedicated to pediatric therapy, was opening. Children with various illnesses would find comfort among specially designed sensory gardens and accessible pathways. My mother believed gardens could heal more than bodies. Daniela addressed the assembled crowd. They heal hearts, spirits, families torn apart by secrets and fear. This place is her legacy, not just beautiful flowers, but hope blooming in life's hardest seasons. The ceremony included a surprise, the first public performance of Elizabeth's lullaby for Daniela, arranged for orchestra. As the gentle melody filled the garden, many recognized it as the tune Daniela often hummed while working with patients. Later that evening, alone among Elizabeth's white roses, Daniela touched the silver locket she still wore. Inside, she'd added tiny photos: Elizabeth in the garden, Arturo smiling by the roses, Michael's journal entry about his sister, and Amy's first garden sketch. A soft voice behind her spoke, "They would be so proud of you." Maria's daughter Sophia, the girl Daniela had grown up considering a sister, stood there smiling. After Maria's death, Sophia had joined the garden staff, helping extend its healing touch to underprivileged communities. "Sometimes," Daniela replied, "I feel them here." Mom among her roses, Dad checking the pruning, Michael planning new projects. "They are here," Sophia said simply. "In every life touched by this place, every heart that finds healing here." The garden had indeed become more than Elizabeth dreamed. Beyond the therapeutic programs, it hosted community events, educational workshops, and support groups. The Morgan family's story of healing inspired others to face their own buried truths and find reconciliation. Most meaningful to Daniela were the quiet moments: elderly patients remembering long-forgotten joys, children finding strength through nature's resilience, families rebuilding bonds in the garden's peaceful embrace. As sunset painted the roses gold, Sarah joined them, bringing news. The hospital board had unanimously approved expansion of the therapeutic garden program to all their facilities. Elizabeth's vision of healing through nature would spread beyond Boston, touching countless lives. "We should celebrate," Sarah suggested. "Family dinner. Amy's driving up from medical school." But the word family no longer brought pain. Instead, it meant love that had survived winter's harshest storms, blooming more beautifully for the trials endured. That night, dining in the garden conservatory where her journey began, Daniela looked around at her expanded family. Sarah discussing hospital politics, Amy debating modern medical theories, Sophia sharing stories of lives transformed by the garden's work. The past's shadows had transformed into wisdom, its pain into purpose. Elizabeth's garden had become exactly what its creator envisioned: a place where healing transcended medicine, where love overcame fear, where family meant more than blood. Above them, stars twinkled through the conservatory's glass ceiling. Somewhere, Daniela knew, Elizabeth and Arturo watched their family united at last. Their love story hadn't ended with secrets and separation. It had blossomed into this healing touching countless lives, hope growing from deepest pain, and a garden where broken things became beautiful again. As night fell over Boston, Elizabeth's garden glowed softly with carefully placed lights, illuminating paths where tomorrow's healing would begin. The white roses gleamed like stars brought to earth, eternal symbols of love's power to transform darkness into light, pain into purpose, and endings into new, more beautiful beginnings. In the gentle evening breeze, the roses seemed to whisper Elizabeth's eternal truth: love finds a way through winter's darkest days, blooming more beautifully for having survived the storm. Through every person's life, there comes a winter moments when we feel abandoned, betrayed, or lost in darkness. Like Elizabeth's roses buried under snow, our hearts can feel frozen by life's cruelest seasons. But love, real love, never truly dies. It waits patiently beneath the frost, like seeds of hope planted by those who loved us even when they couldn't hold us. Sometimes it's a mother's secret tears, a father's unspoken pride, or the simple truth that family isn't built by blood alone, but by hearts that choose to beat as one. Elizabeth's garden teaches us that our deepest wounds can become our greatest gifts. From betrayal blooms forgiveness, from loss grows understanding, from pain springs the power to heal others. Every scar we bear can become a bridge someone else crosses to find their way home. To those feeling lost, you are more loved than you know. Like Daniela, your story isn't written in your losses, but in how you bloom despite them. Someone somewhere has planted seeds of love in your life, waiting for you to discover them. To those carrying guilt, it's never too late for truth to heal what time has broken. Elizabeth's choice to protect her child through distance teaches us that love sometimes wears masks of absence, but absence doesn't mean abandonment. To those grieving your loved ones, live on in every act of kindness you share, every moment of healing you bring to others. They bloom again in the gardens you tend, in the lives you touch, in the love you choose to give despite having lost so much. Remember, the most beautiful gardens grow in soil enriched by fallen leaves. Our broken pieces become the foundation where future flowers bloom. And sometimes, in our darkest winters, when all seems lost, we discover we were never truly alone, just waiting for spring to reveal the love that survived beneath the snow. Like the roses in Elizabeth's garden, may you find strength to bloom again, courage to trust again, and wisdom to see that even your deepest wounds can become someone else's healing. For in the end, we are all gardeners of hope, planting seeds of love that will bloom long after our winters have passed. In every ending lies a new beginning. In every scar, a story of survival. And in every heart brave enough to love again after loss, a garden waiting to bloom. Your winter isn't forever. Spring always comes to those who hold on long enough to see the first rose bloom. If this story touched your heart, please share it with those who need hope in their dark seasons. Your likes, subscriptions, and heartfelt comments fuel our passion to create more stories of healing and redemption. Together, we can spread love and understanding, one story at a time. Join our family by subscribing, because every garden needs caring hearts to help it grow.